we are joined with the man himself, Carl Jha. Carl, thank you for this, man. I always appreciate your visits. And just to give the audience who you are, I think they don't, but still, Carl Jha is host of Silk and Steel podcast, focused on China and surrounding regions and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter. I'm sorry, Carl, I have a code, and it's make me just
no worries.
You can follow Carl Jha on Twitter at Carl Jha. You can follow his podcast on Twitter at Steel Silk In. You can subscribe and support his podcast at patreon.com, Silk and Steel, where they go through the 5,000 years of Chinese history week by week. Breaking that down, that is a hell of a challenge. I love it. How you doing, man? You doing okay today?
I'm doing good. Well, at least you are having a cold in the tropics. By the way, welcome to Indonesia.
Well, thank you for that. I caught it on an airplane. It never fails, man. It never fails. Every time. During COVID, I had like 2 masks on. I was like, keep your distance away from me, man. Stay away from me. I was like, and I never caught anything. I didn't catch COVID not once.
Nice. Congrats.
Well, yeah, the moment COVID leaves, I get on an airplane and bam, like as soon as you touch down, within 2 or 3 days, you got your cold.
Well, it's a lot easier to have cold in the tropics than cold places. So
is it?
So there's that.
Why?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's. I think it is. It's when the weather is warmer, it just don't feel as bad. at least for me, that's how it works.
Yeah, as well. I've enjoyed it here though. There is a difference between Malaysia and here.
How are you enjoying the protest? You're in the center of the action, my man.
I know, right? So I haven't personally seen it, right? I've seen it on TV and I've seen it on the internet where they're apparently, but
that's your plausible deniability. So you deny that you have anything to do with bringing this protest to Indonesia. It's a pure coincidence that it started. It started with your arrival into the country.
See, I don't want to touch the protest, right? Even though I have a point of view on it. Because, somebody's come to your house and says, Mr. Thomas, says, yes, we've seen your video. Get butt naked. It's like, oh, dude, don't make me get butt naked now. Like, I don't want that to happen, right? I don't want to be dragged off into a prison cell. But, I've seen the protests. I mean, to be fair, they're protesting like somebody in France will protest. Or like somebody in America will protest.
Yeah. Well, no, I would dispute about this is how America would protest, because the people in Indonesia are protesting because the politicians in the Indonesian parliament voted them to give themselves a raise. It's about like $4,000 monthly.
$5,000.
$4,000 to $5,000 monthly housing allowance. And people are really upset about that because people here see the politicians as corrupt and useless. And they're like, what the hell are you giving yourself a raise for? And that's what they're protesting. In America, we both know, all the Americans know our politicians are the best politicians the money can buy.
Oh, they don't think that.
They're all millionaires. They're all millionaires. They're all millionaires. They're all corrupt. And they are completely useless. Well, except at stock picking, because Nancy Pelosi is the best stock picker of all time. She beats the records of all Wall Street hedge funds. Yet, there's no protest about that. We just kind of take it for granted. That's what politicians do. They F us in the ass. I mean, we just take it. Americans just take it. We spend over and take it for our politicians. But Indonesians, you know what my wife said? Because Indonesia is actually a democracy. Mm-hmm. United States apparently not, because here people actually think they can actually change policy, by protesting.
And they did.
They did.
Rescinded the policy.
Did change the policy. Now they have revert back the monetary compensation for the parliamentarians in Indonesia. Yeah. So it's actually having an effect. Compared to what was achieved in the United States. What happened to Occupy Wall Street? What came out of that? I mean, what exactly, Obama?
It's wild. The reason why I say it's kind of like anywhere else is because it's about the immiseration of the working class. It's like, dude, we are struggling, and you're giving yourselves a $5,000 a month raise to live in Jakarta. Are you out of your mind? It's rational, right? Like, it makes sense. Yeah. They should be outraged. Hence, burning stuff and what X number of people get killed.
Well, I don't know about burning stuff because, like, I have Indonesian friends who told me, like, look, we don't think it's the students that's burning stuff. I mean, there's obviously agent provocateurs. The question is, who is really behind those agent provocateurs? But it's not the students who are burning like infrastructures and bus stops and stuff like that. Most of the students they just want the politicians to not be so blatant about their corruption. But anyway, yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I know there's a lot of speculation on who might be behind those agent provocateurs, but I don't want to speculate right now. It's too early to tell. I don't have I like to point fingers, but only when I have solid evidence. Yeah, let's...
like that guy. No, it's been wild. So I was like just watching with curiosity. It's like France. Like it's like, what do you mean you're creating a fuel tax where you're charging us all of this money for fuel? This is outrageous. And then you have Occupy Wall Street, just kind of not Occupy. Yellow Vests just spring up, where you get like 80% of the population agree with the protests. Like, it affects change, but that doesn't happen in the U.S. It just doesn't. It's weird.
Well, I mean, have you seen our militarized police? Have you seen the U.S. police fully deck out in tactical gears and they have armored vehicles? Well, there's not much you can do. And like people say, we have guns, dude. Have you tried to use your guns against the government? It's not going to turn out well. There are too many instances to let you know your guns are useless against the feds. You'll be crushed.
The way that works is, how many people are they going to kill? That's what it boils down to. How many people is the government willing to murder in order to maintain their policy, maintain their power? That's what it's. Because you can have all of those guns, you can have all of those takes. The rub becomes when you have to use those things, and you have to use those things against a population that is fed up because there's nowhere else for the population to go. And so it's like, okay, are you willing to kill 1 million people to make that work? Are you willing to kill 2 million?
Well, United States government, I have my full trust in United States government to do whatever it takes. I mean, they have a lot of practice. They have a lot of practice killing people abroad. It's just a matter of the empire coming home to roost. I mean, yes, I think right now, we're not reaching the boiling point yet in U.S. We're still the frog. We're still frog in the pot. The water is heating up, but we're not at the boiling point yet.
Yeah, but that crisis point will be reached at some point. I mean, it's a mechanical process. Like, at some point, you get to the point where just standing still becomes harder than changing things. And when you get to that point, all hell breaks loose. But the U.S. seems to be mostly asleep, and they don't seem to see it. They don't seem to
sleepwalking over a cliff. Yeah, that's
sleepwalking over a cliff. I like that. That's a good way to put it. Carl, I brought you on because there is a prevailing, let's say, rumor. I'm going to say rumor. Now, Financial Times was reporting it as if it's not a rumor, but there's a rumor that they were going to use Chinese peacekeepers in Ukraine. Now, the Trump administration effectively said, hell no, that was never discussed. And apparently, they're claiming that this was discussed at the meeting with the Europeans. Now, this is wild, because you would think that if this was discussed at the meeting with the Europeans, the first thing they would have came out screaming is, oh my God, Trump is talking about Chinese peacekeepers. So right here, the Financial Times, citing 4 people briefed on the matter, claimed on Saturday that during the meeting with the White House last week, the European leaders and Ukraine President Donald Trump suggested deploying Chinese troops as peacekeepers to post-war Ukraine. The Financial Times also claimed that the White House denied it. Yeah, no doubt. Trump proposed inviting China to supply peacekeepers to monitor a neutral zone along Ukraine's 1,300-kilometer front line as part of a peace settlement with Russia, the Financial Times reported. The White House blatantly said this is false. Quote unquote, this is false. Senior Trump administration officials said, adding that there had been, quote, no discussion of Chinese peacekeepers, according to Financial Times. China also pointed out this is false, and went further in saying They're
China
playing
probably never heard about this proposal. I mean, if there was a proposal, China apparently hasn't been communicated to China yet. I don't think that happened. And China do provide a lot of peacekeepers for the UN peacekeeping missions. There were Chinese peacekeepers in Lebanon. There were Chinese peacekeepers all over Africa, in southern Sudan, for example. But China operate under the UN principle, which means they will only send peacekeeping missions under the UN flag. So you will have to be a UN Security Council approved peacekeeping mission, and then China will sign on to that. So if only there will be a UN authorized a peace deal over Ukraine and a UN authorized peacekeeping mission in Ukraine, then it's possible for China to send its peacekeeper in there. But without the UN umbrella, I don't think China would have unilaterally saying, "Oh, we're sending our people in to be what? To be booby trap? I mean, to be tripwire? I mean, like, so China would do nothing without the UN explicit authorization. That has been the operandum for China since forever. So this might be just a brain fart of Trump administration, because Trump, he like to think out of the box. He just might be something that he throw out there, but we know Trump, he can change his mind in like 24 hours. So who knows, how real this thing was. Maybe it was a trial balloon was being floated out.
I don't believe this at all. I don't think Trump, can you imagine Ursula von der Leyen, Mertz, all of these guys sitting there who believe that China is helping Russia, they believe it, firmly, coming out after Trump says, "Yeah, I think I'm going to get the Chinese to help out and patrol it." They already think China's working with Russia. In their mind,
look, European. This is how Trump will think. We will come up with a proposal and European will accept it. But that has been the way the Trump administration have been working. You're seeing all those European leaders lining up like school children in the White House, waiting to be scouted by Trump. And Trump has no respect for these European leaders. No, let's face it. He has no respect for weakness. And the Europeans in his eyes are spineless weaklings. He can easily bully. And so I don't think he even think about European opposition.
Yes,
with all these
I'm sorry to interrupt. He does care about European. Now, Axios is reporting that the Trump administration and the Atlantic, that the Trump administration is pissed off at Zelensky and the European Union because they're doing everything in their power to put the kibosh on any kind of deal. Basically saying they're doing everything in their power to stop my deal. I suspect this is the European Union setting this as a booby trap, not something that Trump said. And mind you, I think Trump lies as easily as he breathes. So agreed. I just don't get the sense that he would have put this up.
This is a trial balloon of some sort. You might be right. You might be like European Unions. You might be White House. But these are structured leaks, right? These leaks to Financial Times. They're never just some random, in the government, some disgruntled government employees decide to give this juicy piece of information to the news. This is how Western journalism works. It's all strategic leaks. This is so this could be a trial balloon. I agree, from either side, from European Union or from Trump, to see how it's been received by the public, right? And then they plan the next step. But from China's perspective, no Chinese peacekeepers would be deployed anywhere without explicit UN Security Council authorization. So, and we're very far from that at this point.
So, okay, I agree with you about the trial balloon thing. This is very strategic leak. Now, China is pointing out that the Europeans are still repeating this and talking about this, despite the fact that China and the White House said, this didn't happen. And like you pointed out, China's this is news to us. Nobody told us this, right? You guys have been having this conversation amongst yourselves. Why would they put this leak up? I mean, because Europe up to this point hasn't wanted China anywhere near this process. They've wanted to put troops.
They are getting desperate, Jamar. They're getting desperate. Russia is winning the battlefield. Trump is ready to wash his hands, and so the Europeans, they seen themselves as holding the bag, and so they're getting desperate. And recently, there's another Ukraine. They released a video. They have captured Russian drones, and they found a Chinese parts, right? The drone parts, and that shows actually has footage from Chinese factory. Like we know this for 3 years. I mean, I tweeted, I'm like, Ukrainian patriots should really punish China by boycotting Chinese drone parts from Ukrainian drones, because both sides use Chinese drone parts. Let's just face it. Neither side could have carried on this drone warfare this long without Chinese parts from Chinese suppliers. And these are not Chinese military grade parts. These are Chinese commercial drone parts produced for like Chinese commercial drone makers like DJI, right? They're meant for you to take a picture, make a video. It's other people decide to militarize them. These are civilian commercial parts. These are not military grade drone parts that China is supplying to either side. And in fact, like, even if China tried to actively ban it, there's so many channels for either Ukraine and Russia to source them, because they can just go to a third country that has commercial relations with China where they can get Chinese commercial drone parts. So this is the reason they're now trying to blow the story up. Oh, China is supplying drone parts to Russia. So what? What are you going to do? There's some crazy guy on Twitter, like called a Ukrainian battle map or something. He's like, oh, this makes the factory in Guangzhou a legitimate military target. I'm like, okay, so you feel like you don't have enough targets in Russia that you decide to expand your target list against factories in China? Well, good luck with that, Good luck with that.
So this makes a Chinese factory a legitimate target? Is that what he's really arguing? Who's going to hit that factory in China?
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. I tweeted you and what army? You and what army? Like, you really think you're running out of target in Russia? Apparently, that you're going to start to expand your targets to include China. I mean, like they insanity. These people, they're desperate. They're really desperate. And by the way, right now, Putin is shaking hands with Xi Jinping in Tianjin over the SCO Summit. SCO. And also Modi was there as well. Modi actually made sure he structured a photo op where he's getting Xi Jinping, Putin, and himself all holding hands, right? And this is it, of course, come as a response to the U.S. applying additional tariff against India for purchasing of Russian oil. And Modi is showing, hey, look, here's my buddy Putin. We're all good. Here's my buddy Xi Jinping, right? And look at them all laughing together. By the way, what Trump had helped achieve, this is the plan of Putin's predecessor as Russian Prime Minister, Yevgeny Primakov. This was back in 1999. Mm-hmm. Russia under Primakov promoted RIC, Russia, India, China, as a triangle of anti-Western hegemony bloc. But Primakov was a little too early for his time, and now it's happening thanks to our Nobel Peace Prize candidate, Comrade Trump, for making it happening. just give that guy a Nobel Peace Prize already, Jamar.
What do you think
make
means?
It happen.
Like some people are effectively saying, look, this is global shattering or globe shattering in regards to what it means. Because, India was seen as the weak partner in BRICS. India was seen as the party that didn't want to de-dollarize, that wanted to maintain a relationship with the U.S. while also being in BRICS. It was suspected that the U.S. was going to use India as a way of, let's say, inhibiting some of the more aggressive BRIC policy. Okay, well, that seems to be over with.
Well,
as you put out, these guys are
India saw BRICS differently from its other fellow BRICS member nations. Russia and China saw BRICS as an alternative against U.S.-dominated global order, whereas India saw BRICS as an alternative grouping, but not anti-Western or anti-U.S., because India had hoped to maintain a good working relationship with U.S. In fact, India was looking forward to profit from U.S. multinational trying to diverse their supply chains out of China. They were hoping to receive a portion of the pie, right? And especially they were celebrating when Tim Cook moved some of the iPhone production from China to India. Now India produced about 20% of the iPhone. And then comes Trump, and Trump says, hey, I didn't tell you to move Apple production to India. I want you to make iPhone in the United States. And then he goes on to slap 50% tariff on India. So India's dream of being the supplanting China as suppliers of manufactured goods to the United States is being shattered by Trump policies. And United States is India's number one trade partner. China is India's number two trade partner. This is why India right now is trying to repair its relationship with China. The two sides, India and China, has been working together to normalize their relationship after the very deadly 2020 border clash. And that process was already ongoing when Trump did this very helpful extra push to push India further toward normalization ties with China. And it happened. It's happening right now. And Alex Jones, I just saw Alex Jones tweeted out over a picture of Putin, Modi, and Xi in Tianjin. And he said the multipolarity is already here. This is Alex Jones, ladies and gentlemen. Alex Jones has joined the resistance. Okay, that's a joke.
He did say that he thinks Trump is going to collapse in a year. He was like, I don't think Trump is going to last a year. I find it to be interesting. I mean, all things being equal, you're looking at more than half of the global population standing on this stage. I mean, that's astonishing. And then for all these people, Putin is isolated. Putin doesn't have any friends. Look at this. That's half the globe. Like, that's more than half the globe. China and India by itself is like half the globe.
And if you if you map out all these countries attending, you have China, India, Russia, Iran. You just covered most of the Eurasian continent right there. And on top of that, China and India adding together is like 50% of the world population. Plus ASEAN. Well, Indonesia was supposed to attend, but the Indonesian president Prabowo had to cancel his trip because of protests in Jakarta, right? If the Indonesia had attended, all Southeast Asia, South Asia, China, all added together, that's more than 50% of the world population right there already. And, add that Russia, Iran, etc. I mean, this is a large grouping. This is the world island theory, Jamarl.
Yes.
Mackinder, famously said, if you want to dominate the world, you got to dominate the world island. And by the world island, he means Eurasia. He means this huge landmass that Trump just helped to put together. Well, it's not just Trump, but also previous American administration, like, Biden, Obama, they all helped. But Trump is the one that's putting all the pieces together. And this is why Trump is my president. He's my president for multipolarity, Jamarl.
What do you think the response is going to be? I mean, because obviously, so Lula has called for an emergency session of BRICS. And obviously Trump has been going after Brazil and South Africa and India. He held off on China for the time being. But you can tell that there's a certain specificities to the countries that he's really leaning into going after. And I'm going to bring in Venezuela. I mean, part of the issue that comes up with Venezuela is Russia and China, and even Iran on some level, working more closely with Venezuela, especially China putting in, I think, billions of dollars or either hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in order to exploit the oil.
You know what Trump is doing, Jamar? Trump already declared BRICS as anti-American alliance.
Yes,
and now he's going after what he perceived to be the weaker members of the BRICS. Because he knows he can't touch China. You know, he already knew that after that brief trade war in May when Chinese ships stopped coming to Los Angeles. So he knows he can't repeat that. And Chinese still have him by the balls over the rare earth supply chain. So he can't touch China.
He mentioned that. He says China's going to have to give us rare earth minerals or else. It's like, or else what?
Or else, he said, or else I'm going to slap 200% tariff. Yeah. And they're like, go ahead. How is that going to solve anything? You're still not getting the rare earth. You know, no rare earth for you. But so Trump is not going to, he realized, okay, China is untouchable. But you know what? Let me go after the weaker members. Let me go after Venezuela. Let me go after Iran. Let me go after India. Let me go after like the Brazil. Let me go after Brazil. Yeah, let me go after Brazil because Trump is a bully, Jamar. You know, bully. Trump does not. He only respects strength, and he will prey on weakness, and precisely because countries like India, they don't have a smart card to play when it comes to bilateral relationship with United States, because a lot of Indian companies, they depend on providing service, back-end office work for U.S. multinationals, that Trump's felt, I got them by the balls. They will have to come to Washington and bend the knee and kiss my ring. But India, to give India credit, Indians' leadership, they actually have more backbones than the European. Well, everybody has more backbones than the Europeans, but they actually push back against U.S. They say, you know what? You're not going to push us around. We're not going to open our agricultural market for you, because that's another condition Trump wanted. Trump want India basically to cut off its traditional ties with Russia, because India sources a lot of its weapon system from Russia. India imports a lot of Russian oil. Instead, Trump want India to buy U.S. weapons and to buy U.S. oil and gas, right? And India is saying, no, we don't want to do that. Why? What's in it for us? U.S. energy is much more expensive. And F-35 is a piece of crap. You just had another crash. And on top of that, U.S. want India to open its agricultural sector for heavily subsidized American farm producers. So because China are not buying American farm produce anymore, China is switching to buy beef from Brazil, to buy soybeans from Brazil. So Trump wants India to open its market for American farm produce, but India has 60% of its workforce employed in the agricultural sector. There's no way they're going to allow a flood of American farm produce to come in to devastate their major employer of their labor. So they're not going to budge on that issue. They're not going to budge on Russia. So this is why India right now, Modi is shaking hands with Putin and Xi Jinping and laugh it up right now, because they feel like they need to stand up for themselves. Good for them. unlike the Europeans. and so Brazil, and there's another case. I think Brazil over long term, there will be. I think the U.S. freak out over Brazil and Venezuela is a little more visceral, because U.S. also always sees this as its quote unquote backyard, since the Monroe Doctrine. And now you see Brazil, Venezuela developing ties with powers outside of the Western Hemisphere, with Russia, with China. And U.S. is having a freak out about that. This is why they're freaking out about the quote unquote Chinese ownership over Panama Canal ports. Trump want to levy extra tariff against goods exported from the Chinese finance megaports in Peru, and they want to now put the extra squeeze on Venezuela because they feel like, okay, we can't touch China. China is too far. We're now winning against Russia in Ukraine, but maybe we can still apply our pressure in the Western Hemisphere where the U.S. is still stronger and is within our reach. But given the particularity of Trump, Trump is the type of person, he likes to claim easy victories. Yes. If it's an easy victory, he will sign on for 100%. Then he can claim victory, then claim he's a great peacemaker and, give me a Nobel Peace Prize, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think they will be able to make any difference because U.S. has been besieging countries like Cuba and Venezuela for decades. And right now they're sending 4,000 troops to sail around Venezuela. Yeah. This is designed to intimidate and cause panic inside Venezuela. But I don't think that will work because I don't think they actually intend to carry out a military operation because 4,000 troops, this is just going to be another Bay of Pigs if they do intend to carry out their threat. And so it's really a show of intimidation. They're trying to foment something, possibly another color revolution inside Venezuela. But I don't think they will succeed.
How do you think these BRICS countries are going to respond? I mean, if they're having this emergency meeting, well, two things. One, the fact that the main parties of BRICS are meeting now. Well, met yesterday, I suppose, by their time.
Well, so BRICS and SCO are different, right? BRICS is the economic. They overlap, major overlap. BRICS is the economic cooperation forum. Right. SCO is a security cooperation forum that started by Russia and China.
Is securing their economic capability. Meaning they overlap, the countries overlap.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of room for cooperation among BRICS members to push back against the Trump tariff because, that is their economic, that's not their sphere, the economic cooperation. And as I mentioned on your show many times before, these countries individually, they might have a weaker hand dealing with United States. But if they can present a united front and then to deal with U.S. as a bloc, they will have much more negotiation power and they will have a lot more bargaining power.
Meaning, is that what you think all of these leaders are going to do and BRICS are going to do?
I don't think that they intended to do that in the beginning, but I think Trump's escalating action is now forcing the BRICS members to coalesce together. And I think, right now, China is already showing solidarity with India on the trade issue. They say, look, we're against bullying, unilateral bullying on international trade. We demand that our sovereignty to trade with whoever we want be respected, right? And so, I think, and there's another for countries like Brazil, for example. China has already diverted a lot of trade from United States to Brazil, particularly sourcing agricultural products. China, on Chinese supermarket now, the American beef are being replaced with Brazilian beef. They're getting more soybean from Brazil. They don't need United States. China has prepared for the last 7 years to decouple from the United States, and so Brazil will find a ready buyer in China's burgeoning market. And what Trump's doing, slapping 50% tariff against Brazil, is going to only further accelerate that process of Brazil looking east. And right now, it's like what Trump administration is doing is like the monkeys throwing feces on the wall to see what sticks, right? But, they don't even care if any particular crap sticks on the wall. They're just like throwing everything and hoping at least one thing stick. I think I don't put too much stock on any grand strategy behind Trump's actions. So as long as BRICS members can come together and have a coordinated action, I think they will be fine. I think they will do fine because, as I mentioned, BRICS in the economic terms, they're in power purchase parity terms. BRICS economy is already larger than G7. Right. And that gap continued to grow because the BRICS members are growing. Russia is growing faster than European countries, and add India and China. They already have they have the market, they have the energy. The BRICS members, they contain a lot of the energy producers. A lot of the countries in oil producing countries as well. So they have all the energy they need. They have all the commodity they need. They have a huge market, huge population, and China is a manufacturing superpower. They really don't need United States.
Why not come out and say that? Meaning, when they came out with their SCO Summit announcement, and many of these countries have been under the thumb of the U.S., the tariffs and everything else. Why not come out and say, we're going to work in tandem to push back or to deal with, they can put it whatever language they wanted on the tariffs that Donald Trump is going after our individual nations with. And they can even enumerate X tariff on this country, X tariff on that country, 50% on India, 50% on Brazil, etc. Then they can say, we are no longer going to tolerate this, and we're going to work as a collective union in order to push back. They can use whatever term they want, but to make it clear that this is intolerable. And as you point out, we're not going to accept you, 4% of the globe, bullying all of us. Or that's just not what they do.
Well, we'll have to wait. Well, first of all, SCO right now, this is a security forum. This is separate from BRICS. So I don't expect them to make a statement on the trade issue necessarily. And also, there's some nations like Armenia and Azerbaijan leadership who are also kind of cozy with Washington right now. So there's an interesting dynamic going on there, and so I don't expect a statement coming out of SCO, but in the coming BRICS meeting, we might hear more statement. Brazil is obviously really keen on that because Trump is basically interfering in their domestic politics by conditioning the 50% tariff on release of Bolsonaro, who, this is completely internal Brazilian matter. Like United States is imposing its will on Brazil, trying to challenge Brazilian judiciary system. I mean, that's not acceptable to any sovereign nation. So I think I think we'll just have to wait until the next BRICS meeting. I expect with the emergency meeting being called, I expect they might be working something right now behind the closed door, because a lot of these meetings, right, it's really mostly for photo ops. A lot of the solid groundwork already been laid out, already been worked behind the scenes by diplomats from these countries, and when they meet, it's really to sign the deal and make it public. So I'm sure they're already working furiously right now, trying to figure out a coordinated response to the current Trump tariff war.
Interesting. I want to show you a clip. This is somebody who's being very honest. That to a U.S. audience, this level of honesty feels and sounds okay. To the rest of the world, this is a terrifying level of honesty coming out of the U.S. I'm trying to figure out who she is. U.S. General Laura Richardson. Listen to what General Richardson. Listen to what she has to say.
If I talk to my number two adversary in the region, Russia, I mean, I've got, of course, the countries, Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua with Russia relationships. But why this region matters, with all of its rich resources and rare earth elements. You've got the lithium triangle, which is needed for technology today. 60% of the world's lithium is in the lithium triangle, Argentina, Bolivia, Chile. You just have the largest oil reserves, light sweet crude discovered off of Guyana over a year ago. You have Venezuela's resources as well with oil, copper, gold. We have the Amazon, lungs of the world. We have the 31% of the world's fresh water in this region too. I mean, it's just off the charts. We have a lot to do. This region matters. It has a lot to do with national security, and we need to step up our game.
Ain't that amazing? I love her honesty. It's not about freedom and democracy. It's not about your sovereign states. It's not about any of that. We have national security issues with your reserves.
Your resources. Your resources present a national security problem for the United States.
Yes.
Because you have too much of it.
It's like, Russia, China, these places. But the issue is the resources. We need to get our hands and control those resources. It's national security for us.
This is why, Jamar, this is why I really appreciate Trump administration for bringing honesty to the foreign affairs messaging. Before Obama, Biden, the world sugar-coated about, we work with our partners, in private-public partnership to promote, to build a world back better. And, that never happened. But Trump just rip away the emperor's new clothes and say, hey, give us the oil. Give us the gold. And they're going after Venezuela because Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserve. And the type of oil Venezuela produces, they're the heavy crude. And just so happened that most of the U.S. refinery in the southern United States are built to refine heavy crude, match exactly the type of oil that Venezuela is producing. So U.S. has been, butthurt about being pushing out of Venezuela's oil sector for decades now, and they want back. They want to be back. They want to be back to be dominating that. And this is they mentioned lithium. I don't even know why they mentioned lithium because lithium is important because the EV transition and right. Trump already said he's not for EV transition. He wants to go all the way with oil and gas. But anyway, so South America, they still see South America as Americans' backyard. Even though, if you look at Brazil is actually very, very far from the U.S. But they still see this as their kind of a sandbox. And this is why they find it increasingly alarming that China is putting investment in the region. China is bringing its Belt and Road Initiative all over Latin America. This is why they pressured Panama to cancel its high-speed rail project with China, for example. And for what? But Panama had to do it because last time U.S. invaded Panama, I'm old enough to remember U.S. invading Panama under the pretext of stopping the drug traffic, and that's the same excuse they're using right now against Venezuela. But it's not about drugs, folks. It's all about oil. It's all about resources, and this is at least everybody knows now. What U.S. is about. That's what I appreciate about Trump. I appreciate his honesty.
Yeah, that's an amazing clip. I mean, look, I don't know the full version of the clip, but the fact that she's and she owns, right? China and Russia are adversaries. China and Russia are playing in our quote unquote backyard. And we have a lot of work to do because there are a lot of resources that we need to get our hands on. And it's an issue of national security. Imagine me saying that. Carl, your car is an issue of my security. The notion that you are making the argument that somebody else owns, that they are sovereign over, meaning their country, their resources and everything else, that is an issue for me because, hashtag reasons. That is a fascinating statement. She's from the Atlantic Council. This is This is how these people think. Like when I was having a conversation with Warwick, and Warwick was given this vision for the SCO, this idea that countries are invaluable, there is no hegemon in this, we're working together, your security is my security, meaning the fact that you're safe is on some level my security because you have no reason to come after me. All of these things are beautiful views and possibilities of the world. And as I pointed out to him, not everybody thinks that way. She's not thinking that way. Her thinking is, you have stuff that we want. And we are going to define that as a matter of principle and policy as a national security issue. Now, God doesn't get involved. Nobody stops any sociopath from doing that, right? Nobody stops somebody who decides, I'm going to steal that car. Nobody stops the guy from stealing the car, short of the guy screwing up and getting caught. I'm saying she believes that because we have enough force and leverage and control as a hegemon, somehow it is okay for us to prioritize your resources as our main concern. That is mind-blowing. Like these are the sociopaths, and she's openly saying it. It's not like this is in quiet whispers, like behind the scenes, like, yeah, this is what we really think. But we go out and say, no, these countries are sovereign, they're invaluable, and we need to protect the democracy and blah, blah, blah. They're not hiding the ball. They're not hiding the ball. They think it's okay. They know the American public will accept it because, hey, well, we're America, right? So it's okay for us to do this. I'm just finding that to be amazing. I'm giving you a take on something else in relation to this. I have a hypothesis. I call it hypothesis. That an argument is being made across the world, ideologically. In one sense, you have SCO, BRICS, and they are making this argument of, we want countries to be equals. We want countries to work with one another. We don't want countries to use force with one another. Force is the last resort that we want to effectively engage in. We believe that safety is something that has to be shared by everybody or nobody, meaning you're not safe unless I'm safe, because if I'm unsafe, I'm going to make your life miserable, and vice versa. And they are espousing that argument to the world in what you've just seen in regards to the summit that they just held, or BRICS in regards to the summit that they held. And then you get her, who's the honest imperialist. And you get people like Trump, who's an honest imperialist. I'm going to put tariffs on you if you don't do what I tell you to do. This is naked hegemony, right? You get the European leaders that lumped into this kind of white Western world, this 14, 15% of the globe, that's decided to put their lot in with the United States in order to make this argument, because they believe that their lot is best served with a main power that they are no longer, associated with. Like, if you ask Britain to put 10,000 troops somewhere, they'd be hard-pressed to do it. If you ask Europe to come up with a European military, they'd be hard-pressed to do it. These people are idiots. You got people like Kalis, that twit, who goes out, China is bigger than Russia, and if we can't take down Russia, then how are we going to beat China? It's so confusing. Like, you get that from Europe. Am I insane on this? That it seems to be that the world, or let's say power centers of the world, economic, military, are making two very different arguments and saying that the world, on some level, gets to choose. And I think many of the world is choosing, even though some may be scared to kind of admit it openly. That seems to be what's taking place, kind of like the Soviet Union and the United States at one point. Give me a take on that. Do you think I'm overplaying what seems to be happening? That they're not really making the argument, it just seems that they're making the argument.
Okay, so I mean, U.S. Well, I just remind me of the Tucker Carlson interview with Putin, when Putin says it doesn't matter who is the U.S. president, as long as U.S. leaders do not give up this mindset of hegemony, or this zero-sum mindset, nothing is going to change. And I don't think the U.S. I don't expect any change on the U.S. elite part. Well, for one thing, there hasn't been, like I said, we haven't rioted on the street over their useless and corrupt ways yet, and but the rest of the world is already changing. They're already moving forward without U.S. But the difference between today and Cold War .1, I fully believe the U.S. elite is trying to engineer trying to bring back Cold War 2.0. Because they thought, okay, we know how Cold War 1.0 worked. We won that. we crushed the Soviet Union. So it's just going to be a matter of time when China collapses, the Russia collapses, Iran collapses, whatever. And but right now the world is very different. And what China and Russia are doing is also very different from Soviet Union. They're not out to destroy the United States or the Western world. They're not even trying to export an ideology to the Western world. They just want to be left alone. And they actually are now working, on their own development without involving the West. But they're fully open to have a normalized relationship with the West at some point, right? They do not have that zero-sum mindset that's infected that mind bug that's infected in Washington, right? Yeah. So China, I said many times, China is not out to destroy the United States. China actually would like the United States to prosper because the United States still remain one of its largest trading partner. You don't want to kill your customer, right? And so yeah, it doesn't make sense, right? So China actually want United States to be a stable, functioning society, but just less crazy, just chill the F out, right? I mean, just like, sir, this is a Wendy's, right? Just order your freaking hamburger and get the F out, but have a nice day. That's China's attitude, right? And then but so they're not looking to have a Cold War style confrontation. So what they're doing, they're building their own strength, they're building their own alternative multipolar world, and West at any point feel free to join. They're not trying to exclude the West from anything. It's the West that's trying to exclude themselves. U.S. now is building a wall around United States and its vassal states, right? To try to wall them off from the rest. Because U.S. think it's competing for global hegemony against China. But what actually China is doing, they're just trying to build global connectivity. So when United States is trying to wall off China, what they're actually building a wall around U.S., its European allies or vassals or whatever, but the rest of the world has already moved on, and oh man, this is many people think that we're gonna be able to win this competition against China, which is nonsense because they think they're putting everything right now in with technological breakthrough that we're going to win. We're going to put our basket in AI. If we just develop generative AI, AGI, and then, we will get to Skynet and Terminator first, then China will be screwed, right? That's their plan right now. That's their plan. And this is why there's $500 billion investment supposedly into the Stargate project, right? And this is a huge AI bubble that's been building up right now. But United States don't have the electric generation for that to support this kind of the AI expansion. China does. China actually has lot of overcapacity in power generation. China built a lot of thermal power plants because they are building out a lot of solar and wind power. Solar and wind power are unstable source of power, so they have to build thermal power plants to do load balancing, which means right now people are pointing finger at China. Oh, China! Why China adding new coal plants? China is adding new coal plants because they're actually building out whole swaths of solar and wind power, and those Chinese coal plants right now sitting at 50% capacity. Which means in a crunch, China can easily ramp up their power generation 200% quite easily. And United States simply do not have that kind of extra capacity to supply its AI to its AI boom right now. There's no extra power for those AI data centers they have planned. I mean, like they killed off right now the cheapest energy they could deploy right now is solar. They're cutting themselves. Guess who is making solar cheap? This China. China's overcapacity in solar panels is making solar cheap. And that's why Africa, a lot of the global South nations are adopting solar because of the cheap Chinese solar panels. United States is willingly cutting that off. So because Trump decided, no, we're not going to go to solar because that's all environmental BS. We're all going to go full oil and gas drill, baby drill. And again, even in the oil and gas, United States is not building enough gas-powered generators to generate that electricity. So what if they really succeed in do this Cold War 2.0 and trying to wall themselves off? What you're going to have is U.S. and European going to be stuck in the old fossilized economy with older technology, hydrocarbon-based technology, while China and the rest of the world, they will push forward with electrification, and they will have cheap, abundant solar energy to draw from, and they're going to power ahead. And China is already applying their AI. China has applied their AI in robots, in advanced manufacturing, whereas in the United States, AI is still chatbots, because that's U.S. advantage is talking. They do a lot of there's a lot of word cells in the United States. They generate a lot of PowerPoint presentation. So China is actually using AI, whereas in US, what does the AI produce? Their AI is not producing profit right now, even in the United States. They're pouring huge increasing amount of investment into developing AI data centers, but AI in the United States actually are not being used in a product. They're not generating the kind of revenue or profit that would justify the level of investment that's going to the AI bubble right now in the US. Whereas China, they're actually applying AI intelligently into robotics, into advanced manufacturing. So who is going to win? I mean, it's just going to be a matter of time when that AI bubble going to burst in the United States, and then, that's not. The United States is stuck forever in this kind of asset bubble, and then move on to the next. I have witnessed this since I started working in the U.S. in 1999. At the end of the first internet bubble, and then after that it was a housing bubble, and now we're in the AI bubble, and it's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. And whereas China and the rest of the world are moving on with sustainable development, I would argue. This is my take.
They're trying to get AGI, like basically they're trying to get not just chatbots. Like they want the ability to have something that can function and work. Like if you, for example, if you say, hey, create me a resume and submit my resume to all of these channels. And after you submit my resume to the channels, keep a lookout for people who respond. And that the thing goes out and does that, meaning it understands you enough where it can function with this kind of basic intelligence.
But Jamarl, their argument for AGI is that they're going to create, the similar or superior intelligence to human beings, so they can replace all these white-collar office workers with AI. So
that's what they want.
You are going to throw a shit tons of people out of work, and they don't care though. But who is going to buy your product? I mean, sure, the AI, the robot, the AI, they don't need to sleep. They can work 24/7. But capitalism, the hyper capitalism that runs the United States, depend on consumerism, right? Who is going to be your consumers when you fired off all your human workers? Who is going to consume?
They don't think that way. I mean, look, I can tell you, in their minds, workers are expensive. And if we can get rid of them, we're better off. And as you point out, if you do that, who's going to buy your products? And then they're like, maybe we can have a basic income that we can give people. Maybe they think that way, like that we can, separate our need for workers, because at that point you have protests and you have people who can go on strike and you have all of this, meaning workers have a certain amount of power in a society by definition of the fact that they're the ones who are doing the work. You don't need a labor union if you have robots doing all the jobs, right? And then, but you get a lot of angry people that you have to deal with. And so maybe their thought is, well, we can have a universal basic income. We can pay people a basic amount. And on top of paying people a basic amount, we can now have robots to do the labor. So we don't have to worry about those people getting blue and tired and, oh, Susie broke up with her girlfriend or boyfriend. And so Susie is not working well today. You can eliminate this most expensive aspect of work for the capitalists. I agree with you. That's exactly what they think, right? That's the reason why they move jobs overseas. Cheaper labor. Okay, but what if now I can get a robot to do it? And he could do it for $5 as opposed to 15 or 20 because these employees are complaining about not having stuff to eat. You're right. You're right. That's what they want. I agree with you. That's what they want. By the way, how's China handling that? Because as you point out, China has radicalized manufacturing. I mean, I've seen some of those factories where like almost the entire process in regards to those factories are done by either machines, AI, robots, is automated. I've seen some of the greenhouses. Oh God, the greenhouses are astonishing. Where you would have this huge building and you would have plants all the way up the building and you would have it being automated so you can cut the price of food, to some insane degree.
Jamarl, you still need AI engineers. You still need people. You still need, you cannot remove people completely from the picture. I mean, China right now, the world's top AI engineers, 50% of them come out of Chinese universities.
Yes.
Right. And of course, Trump is trying to cut that off as well. But he just did another turnabout face. It's like, oh, I'm gonna allow 600,000 Chinese students to come into the U.S. And but before that, he said he was gonna ban, right? And it turns out that of course alarmed his voter base because everybody's like, what? You're gonna allow 600,000 Chinese students to come into the country? And then they just clarify, oh no, we actually mean continue the policy as it has been currently, which means they'll continue to grant visa to come to the United States. The highest number of Chinese who come to U.S. to study in any given year is 300,000 Chinese students at any time studying university students. They say, we're just going to continue to grant a visa 2 years in a row. So that's how they got the 600,000 Chinese student figure. So it doesn't mean they're going to bring additional 600,000 Chinese students to U.S. They're just going to, as in Trump's word, he's going to allow Chinese students to study in U.S. universities. But in China, you asked the question, how China handles that. All these advanced manufacturing that's taking place in China, they still require human labor, but they require a very different, very specific type of human labor. The laborers are well-trained, well-educated, who may be AI engineers, who may be advanced, engineers in robotics, but China is graduating about 9 times more STEM graduates than United States every year. So that number is increasing, and as year goes by, the number of Chinese students attending university as a percentage of population is also increasing, and as well as the number of total STEM graduate that China continue to produce. This is how China wins. China, because they continue to invest in their own population. They're more and more people are getting better education, and that's how they upgrade their economy, by investing in their people. And so yes, a lot of jobs, manufacturing jobs, old labor-intensive jobs like making toys, making shoes, those jobs will be gone. Those jobs will either be automated or shipped to countries like Vietnam or Southeast Asia. That's already happening today. But the Chinese children, Chinese graduates who are coming out of the school, they're going to get better jobs. They're going to work in those managing those automated plants. They will be the ones that design the next AI breakthrough. And then there's always there's always the service economy, Jamar. There's always the TikToks and Douyin economy. The influencers. That's where we are ahead of the curve, Jamar. Right. We are ahead of the curve.
Well, we're being replaced too now.
Entertainers.
Well, you have AI that can do that. Have you seen these AI?
Oh, no AI can be as entertaining as me. No way, man. I refuse to believe that.
True.
Well, I'm not just providing knowledge. I'm also providing entertainment. We're in the age of infotainment, Jamar. We're entertainers.
There will be a moment where there will be a hard time to tell the difference between a person who is, let's say, doing the news versus an AI doing the news. They will be reading a script. They will take on the mannerisms, the persona of the person that oh God, man, it's our jobs are not safe. Have you seen that many of the I love this channel called what is the name of it? It slipped my mind the moment that I thought of it. He does book reviews, and he goes into kind of the tenor of the book and give you kind of the meat of the book. And he was making this point, like in the beginning of his videos, he's like, we are being replaced by AI readers because the AI is getting more humanistic in the way that it tries to read. It can read it with different voices, with different inflections and those type of things. And he's like, help support independent creators against the AI that's coming to take our jobs. That is amazing that's where we are. Like even this element of humanity of being able to recount information is now being taken over by AI itself. That's terrifying. I mean, maybe it shouldn't be terrifying.
I give it 10 years. I give it at least 10 years. I think we still have 10 years shelf life, Jamar.
That's terrifying. Oh, that's terrifying. You know, when I was in software, we used to, I was a software engineer for a decade. And when I first got into the business, you could, let's say 10 years before I got into the business, a YouTube page can make maybe $1 million. Like you could charge for a web page. And then by the time I was there, I think it was like maybe 100K, depending upon the complexity of the website. Today, you have WYSIWYGs. Like any random person doesn't know a bit of code can go and build the site just by dropping stuff onto a page. And most of the technical details of the stuff is just automated. It's coming for our jobs, Carl. It's coming for our jobs. I'm curious how China's going to deal with that. Because, by the way, that's not just a U.S. problem. I mean, when you get to the point where trucks are automated, so going from point A to point B to take materials, that truck is automated. Ubers, taxi drivers, all this stuff is automated. Okay, well, in the U.S., you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people out of work right off the bat just from that technological change. Service industry, you walk into a 7-Eleven or some kind of gas station, it automatically dings your card for whatever you pick up and buy. No cashier is necessary. So maybe you had 5 cashiers, now you're down to 1. Supermarkets, you can already see take place. Meaning that change is going to not just happen here, it is also going to happen in China, a country of 1.4 million people, 4 billion people. Oh, that is going to be a hell of a change.
Automated luxury communism, Jamar. That's what's. I think there will have to be some kind of universal basic income. I think that because you now you have abundance, right? Now you with a new technology breakthrough, you're gonna have you have created abundance. Now, again, you're gonna have running into the problem with where's your consumers, right? So you have to redistribute the wealth somewhat. Right. Right now the problem is not the fact that technology is advancing so fast. The problem is really the problem in the distribution. Right now all the wealth is going to the top 1%, and they're trying to discard the rest of the 99% as unnecessary, right? But that by itself is not sustainable. You can still need consumers. I guess there's some tech lords, tech bros in Silicon Valley think they will be on the top of the pyramids. They'll have all these robots and AI serving them, right? But like, if the AI is smarter than you, why do they need you? Why would they be serving you? What made you so important?
Oh, that's terrifying.
don't know.
Because by the way, this is a question of consciousness. Yeah. This becomes a question of consciousness. Well, there are two questions with this. A, it's a political issue. China will be able to handle this issue better than the U.S. because China seems to be more likely to say, we are indeed a communist country. We did what we needed to do to get to the point of abundance. And so now we're going to ensure that the population is attended to and taken care of. I don't see that in the U.S. That will be a hard sell in the U.S. to China.
I think there will have to be, to make it work. To make it work, there's going to have to be some kind of redistribution of wealth via universal basic income, because otherwise they're going to have riots, man. Yeah. There will be finally there will be riots on the streets. I mean, like you get finally what you witness in Jakarta. You will see that in streets of New York and Los Angeles, and I think they will have to. I think they will be forced to. I mean, I just don't see a way out of that.
That would be a good thing, though. That would be necessary. Because personally, I think you should shoot for abundance. I think that's the point of machines. I think that's the point of robots. To get yourself to the point, a society to the point where you don't need to spend 40 hours a day doing something you don't want to do, etc. And to create a society where scarcity is just not.
So you can pursue the job that you do love to do, right? Exactly. We will also talk about doing the things you truly love. Then we're not having to going through the chore of doing quote unquote work for compensation. Now it's you have all these abundance, so you can pursue things that truly interest you, like talking like shit posting for me, on the internet. That's my passion.
It's like I spend 18 hours talking shit on Twitter. Carl, man, I have always enjoyed these conversations. I always appreciate these conversations. The audience loves you. Thank you for this. Carl Xia, he's host of Silk and Steel podcast, focused on China and surrounding regions and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Xia. You can follow his podcast at Steel Silk In, and you can subscribe and support the podcast on patreon.com/Silk and Steel. Carl, you are fantastic. Thank you for this, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamar. Anytime.
You have a good one. Be safe. All right.
Bye-bye.
Carl is a great guest.